listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
Hi, Jackye.
Hi, Katee. How are you?
It's Friday after, well, it's not afternoon yet, almost afternoon. It's afternoon for you.
Yes.
I do have a meeting at 3:00 on site at a client downtown, but we'll leave that be for a moment.
So let me hurry and welcome you to the Inclusive AF podcast. I'm Jackye Clayton.
And I'm Katee Van Horn. And we are doing this, people. So I think we're going to talk about a couple different things today, but really the overarching theme,
Is it overarching or underlying?
Underlying. Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's better. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. The underlying theme that overarches this episode is
and are they the same thing?
And are they the same? Is really about kind of the control of women's bodies, control of women's actions at work. And the first thing that I would like to dive into, if you will indulge me, Jacqueline.
Absolutely.
Is I was recently on a Facebook group it's like a women's tech Facebook group. And the question was asked by one of the women in the group. I'm pregnant. You can't tell that I'm pregnant yet, but I am pregnant and I'm interviewing at a new organization. Should I tell them or should I not tell them that I am pregnant? What say you to this question?
No, don't tell them.
And the response, I'm going to put on my pearls and my cardigan for a moment, if you will. And what I'm going to respond to you is, us HR people know that it's illegal to discriminate against someone who is pregnant. So why would you say that, Jackye?
Because it's none of your business. Listen, there are some things.
Nanya.
We're going straight into the listen comment. There are just some things that are not, because you're interviewing for a job based on the experiences. Those types of things are not a part of your requirements that need to be met for the job. If you can meet the requirements of the job, apply for the job. Those kind of conversations, just as much as you wouldn't say, by the way, I'm married, I have 3 kids, I live in a house, I drive a Nissan Sentra. You wouldn't give them all of that information because some of that information is just personal. It's just personal. So there are things that are private that you don't have to share, that's between you and your doctor or you and the insurance company, that don't need to be communicated, I don't think. And because what happens is then you'll see just the biases kick back that would prevent you from getting hired, even though you are eligible to be hired. You are someone who fits the description, can do the job. There is some assumptions. Now, as someone who has had one really horrific pregnancy, I quit my job like 3 months in because I thought what I was going through was a permanent condition. Like I thought morning sickness was a permanent condition. There were some things that were going on that caused me I just quit my job right away. But then there are some people that I know who, went to work every day, never had any problems, never have any, there's a lot of unknowns that you don't even know. And that's another reason why it's important, because I think pregnancy means something different for everyone. Meaning, yes, you are with child, but you don't know all of the other things that are going to go along with that. So you're making assumptions, they're making assumptions. And I think some things need to be personal between you and your doctor. I don't think my medical condition should be a part of that conversation unless it's going to get into the way of my job, which at this point, it sounds like doesn't seem like it would.
Well, I love what you just said about all that you said, I think is spot on. I love what you just said though, about you wouldn't tell them that you are married and have 3 kids. And I think that's the piece that sometimes people get confused by, is that they have to share that information. And I'm going to take off my pearls and my cardigan now and say, as much as we want to live in a society that believes that everyone's going to follow the rules and everyone's going to do all the things that the company says they will, how many times do we see situations where people are fired from their job because of, I'm using air quotes, poor performance, which is really you have a newborn or you are pregnant and not feeling well or whatever it might be. And so I think there's just this underlying fear. And I think that fear is absolutely justified because of exactly what I said, because of the bias that occurs and that we know occurs. I just think I wouldn't share. And it's kind of it's not like you're tricking them or it's none of their business, to your point. So,
I mean, I also don't tell them that I have high blood pressure and that you shouldn't piss me off because I could have a heart attack. Maybe I should. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe I should tell potential employers that. Maybe they would treat me a little bit different through the years.
right.
But
Well,
I just feel like I don't think I always, some of the things that we do is always to think, like, would a man say, oh, my wife's expecting a baby? And would that affect anything? Historically, that is part of the reason why our salaries have been imbalanced, because they're like, oh, well, men have to take care of a family and women don't. That was the justification of that. And I bet you it wouldn't shock me if somebody said, oh, he said his wife's having a baby, so we need to give him an extra $1 an hour. Would not shock me at all. In the slightest.
And we know it's happened. I mean, I have absolutely been in a situation where I've had a leader say, he's a family man, so we need to make sure he gets a nice raise, or we need to make sure he gets the promotion over the single woman because, he's got a family to take care of. And of course, that always kind of chaps my hide because I'm that single woman. But
hide fully chapped, fully chapped, hide.
Fully chapped my bottom. By the way, I want to give you a quick update just because I know you're interested. The Quayle family of 7, actually of 9 with mom and dad,
yes,
are outside right now. And the babies now have their little thing.
Oh, that's
on
so
the top
cute.
of their head. They're like mini babies now, or like mini me's now. And I don't know how you tell a baby quail, like what gender it is, but I am very curious because I want to know, like, when do they get away from their mama and stop following their mama around like little baby quails, like in the row?
Oh, you just see if they have a pink bow or if they have a blue vest on.
Oh, okay. Do you have a blue skull cap on or a
That's
pink
right.
one?
That's right. That's how you tell. That's the answer. Permanent. Yeah.
Easy peasy. I don't know what I was thinking, not knowing that. Sorry, that was a quick sidebar. But no, that was one of the questions that, like, I think it comes up more often than we think. Is just like, do you tell that? Do you tell the prospective employer? And I agree with you. Like, it shouldn't matter. And I think, if you get in the door, you prove yourself and you're doing a great job, and then you have to take maternity leave to have said baby, then, the kind of her follow-up question was, if I don't tell them and then I'm hired and then they will just fire me during the probationary period. And I'm like, absolutely. But then you have if you can prove that you're doing a good job and all of these other things, then that's a different conversation that you have with your personal attorney. Thank you. The end.
If I put my pearls in my cardigan on,
Please.
Laura Ashley, of course. Some of the things that you have to remember about anybody who joins any organization can, at any point when you have a certain number of employees, because of the Family Medical Leave Act, there are situations that are out of your control that have nothing to do with pregnancy that could require you to take that time off as well. And it can be, or if you have to take care of a family member, there's different things that go into play with that. I just think that historically we feel guilty. There's this guilt that we're going in and we have situations and we can't speak to that. None of us, and it's not fair to ask somebody to speak to that. And we're trying to get further along. And what is interesting is even at some point, you don't want to work for the place that wouldn't embrace and support you through that process anyway.
No.
And which is sad that you're going through this process. The fact that you are afraid as you're going through the process, I would tap into that personally at home a little bit and see where that's leading. If I think that the organization wouldn't say, oh, come on board, and by the way, that's really awesome, now we get to have, you know, a baby shower and we can support you, we'd love to have children here or whatever,
Mhm.
to being like, oh, I'm terrified because they're not going to hire me, that could be a sign of something else. I would dig into that a bit and see if that also means I also shouldn't tell them anything else if I can't be my whole self.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Whatever your perception isn't going to get better with time.
Right.
You
Oh, and
know,
PS, you people, can we stop saying bring your full self to work? Y'all don't want my full self at work.
I do.
Oh, that's so nice. The rest of
No, I
y'all
don't want to stop saying that at all.
I
I
wanna
want their full
say
selves. I want to say
comfortable.
their full professional selves
that you're willing to share
that
comfortably.
you're comfortable sharing. Of course. Yes. But I think it's also, that more speaks to whether the environment is truly inclusive or not. Like if you're not comfortable sharing a part of yourself, that speaks to the culture.
Well, I just tweet it if I'm uncomfortable.
There you go.
Just to make
Perfect.
it really.
I'm really uncomfortable at work, and here's who made me uncomfortable. The end. XOXO Jackie. How's that working out for you?
I think I find it really funny how people are like, oh my God, guess what happened at work today? And you're like, literally, like this microphone, this is a hot mic. This is a hot mic. We can all hear you.
Yes.
And so I would keep that in mind, that as soon as you become, when you go to an organization, people start looking you up online. So it's only a matter of time that you can hide this. Like you saying, oh, and I mean the universal you saying, oh, I'm not going to tell my work that I'm pregnant, and that you're just one Google search away from it, your baby shower or some reveal party, and everybody finds out, right? So they already know a lot more about you than you probably
Than
think.
you think.
They're
Yes.
making a lot of assumptions and biases anyway, based on your marital status, based on where you live. People are going to make those things. That's why it's important to bring, especially as you're going through the interview process, that an organization is focusing on the actual skills for the job, and you need to stick to the actual skills for the job, and then later be able to dictate where that relationship leads. But we forget that work is not a social club. This is a place to do a task and to get paid for the services that you are giving to the organization.
Love it. So Jackie, what I also want to ask you about is, why don't you just smile more?
You know what? Because I'm an angry Black woman.
Okay. So this is the second topic. The whole concept of women being told they should smile more at work, or should smile more, period.
Yeah. So I know I've heard it happen a lot, especially because we're in the Zoom world, where it's like, oh, I mean, what's even worse is first they're like, turn on your camera, I want to see your pretty faces, and you're like, I didn't even floss, like, dude, please. And then it's like, oh, everybody, let's smile. I might not feel like smiling. And
I only ask people to smile if I'm like, hey, we're taking a picture. Do you want your grumpy face on? Say cheese.
Turn that fan.
I don't actually ever do that either. So no,
I don't do that either. But apparently someone said, and this was, I won't read all of it, but it says, telling a woman to smile, even if your intent is purely innocent, is dictatorial, and it shouldn't happen. It makes women feel like we are only meant to be happy and pretty. Men are socialized to believe that they have control over women's bodies. This is the result in them giving unsolicited instructions on how we should look, think, and act. And that's bothersome to me. And I feel like, I will tell you, my attitude about this has changed through the years. I think some of the ways that some families were conditioned were different, where that's what you need to do, or you're supposed to smile and be pretty, or some of those things, or, you know, you might say you don't have to be pretty for anyone, right? And then because it's not anybody's business. But I will say, I've been told through the years, like, oh, you know, let me see your smile, or so I was told,
you have such a pretty smile, you should use it more.
Or it was recently, they said, A man I was meeting with a client said, "Oh my God, your smile just made my whole day." When it creeped me out, like I wanted to hang up, because then it just took the whole conversation in this really weird place.
Right. Right.
Even me at 48, where I just felt like, what are you looking? Huh?
You're like, no.
I didn't. I couldn't even talk anymore. I was like
Right.
dumb struck. That's not the what we're supposed to say, but I felt like I didn't know how to respond. It was really hard to get back focused into work.
Well, and I think it's also like in that regard, I feel like it's almost like it's distracting from the conversation. And it's also like, what are you like, to me, it almost feels like what are you hiding, or what are you trying to distract me from that
Like,
you're
are you
doing?
flirting with me?
Yeah. Like where are you going with this? Cause, and maybe that's super cynical. I'm sure it is super cynical, but
Amber alert.
it's very interesting. Everybody okay?
I'm okay.
Okay.
We're good. I think the next time someone says, "Oh, your smile's really pretty," I'm gonna say, "You want to go on a date?" I'm just gonna just to make it really awkward, cringeworthy.
You're like,
"You're pretty hot.
You started it, so now I'm gonna wrap it up, sir."
You single? Because I don't think it's appropriate. I've never heard a man say to another guy, "Wow, you've got such great teeth."
I do
Are
have
those
great
bonded?
teeth.
I don't. I have that whole rib accident.
I see. I don't think. Okay, we don't need to talk about this on podcast, but Jackye has weird thoughts in her head about certain things. I don't agree.
Chipped a tooth.
In case you didn't know, sometimes we do disagree on things.
Yeah.
Usually it is body image issues, to be honest.
Yeah. Personality.
Oddly enough.
Whether I'm worthy enough.
Totally fine. But when it comes to like body image and worthiness, then we fist fight. Right. It's great. It's a great friendship we have.
I think it's sad that I'm glad that I have a Katie. I wish more people had a Katie, where you can bounce some of these things off of conversations. And I'm glad that at least the woman who brought this up did have the conversation and started seeing those things. And I think a lot of times so in the work, especially with talent acquisition, I'm always taught within the diversity realm, we're always talking about bias. We're also talking about being triggered in different activities. And we talk about personal trauma and going through all of these things that kind of factor into our personality and who we become. And I think it's interesting because the woman had a lot of different things to say, and it makes you sad because you're like, something happened. It's more than just somebody didn't just say cheese at Olin Mills, and that's the only time somebody's asked you to smile. But it does make you feel inappropriate for someone to say, "Oh, let me see you smile," when again, we're dealing with work or a professional situation. My smile shouldn't. But then, especially like in sales roles, or if you're in the hospitality industry, it's a requirement. So I don't know. I just started thinking about it. It's a requirement that you have to smile. The caveat is when someone who isn't your boss, or maybe if you're not in those industries, says you should smile when it doesn't seem to be part of the conversation.
What happens when employees behave badly? Boy, we could do an entire TV show, maybe a Netflix special on that. Well, Ryan and I sat down and recorded episodes for FAMA, and we asked practitioners, give us your most outrageous story. The sales leader that brings cocaine to work, whatever. Just bring us the outrageous, and it is funny. So if you need a laugh, which we all do from time to time, search for Workplace Misconduct wherever you get your podcast, and you'll find it. And trust me, you will laugh and cry, but you'll definitely laugh. All right. Thank you.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you just said it, because I think there's also this piece of, I go, of course, because my HR brain can't help itself, but I go to like, it's not illegal. It's not harassment. It's not discrimination to say you should smile more. It's just icky and creepy.
Right.
More than anything, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like hey, if you say something like that, it's super discriminatory or whatever. But it's like that comparatively to, again, what you would say to another peer who is male. It's icky. So what other body image issues do you think like come up for women more so than men? And I'm going to lay one out that just came up recently for me, for a friend of mine. So I do like coaching for like women's groups and go in and do talks for them. Excuse me. And recently I worked with a group and we were just talking about power and, talking about the impact of power. And one of the exercises is that we do tell me about a time when you did not have power and you felt powerless. And then tell me about a time that you did have power, you felt powerful. And when you start to break down those conversations and start to hear the stories that are shared, it's disturbing, but I mean, it literally is like, again, this power dynamic that we've created for women. And I also would say for other folks in marginalized groups, like, I think there just is such a breakdown between, what is okay and not okay. And what I mean by that is, recent stories I have heard of, I was 21 and the manager would make sexual innuendos when we were traveling or when we were doing this or doing that. And of course you go, okay, well, that is harassment and you need to report that to HR, blah, 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 blah. But at 21, you're coming into a workforce and half the time it's I didn't know any better. I thought this maybe was just how things went. I don't want to get fired. I have no power. Job. And I have no power, period. And I think that's the setup that we have created in so many organizations. And again, I'm not talking about having male leaders who are great and do an amazing job. I'm talking about those folks that are in our environment, that we know are in our environment, that we warn other females about, that we, stay away from as much as we possibly can, because we know they're going to say something or do something that isn't okay and might be just creepy or might, cross that line to harassment, etc. Or, there could be touching, there could be any number of things where you go into more of the assault piece. And so.
Well, wait, hold on. Cause last night on Versus, I don't know if everybody knows Versus. It's a show on Instagram, or you have to have the Triller app, which is they're not a sponsor. So, whatever. But on Versus last night was Bobby Brown versus Keith Sweat. I know that's that's not even a show, but we can.
I was gonna say, I don't even know if we can do that episode. That's like next level.
No, not even, but it was
just so throw R. Kelly in there too. And we'll have a party.
Then my husband, Mr. Clayton, said, wow, Keith Sweat, that didn't age well, did it? Because we were like, I think that's harassment. When you think about how people were, how grooming or what's acceptable and how we treat women, some of that stuff creeps over where it's like, you have to say, you have to be able to find your voice. I practiced with my daughter and her friends. I encourage even adults need to practice saying, I hope that wasn't coming from a negative place. It really made me feel uncomfortable. Or find the words that you feel comfortable with so that when it does come up that you can speak and have a voice, because all too many times when it does come up, you're not ready. You're not expected. And if you look at all of the stories with like Harvey Weinstein and Me Too and the Me Too movement, it's like you weren't ready. And so it's a benefit to learn to listen and do all these things. And so what we were laughing at, there's this song where that Keith Sweat has that's called I Wanna, and he just is like, it's literally begging a woman to be with him for like 5 minutes, right? You would never have a song. We were like, oh yeah, that didn't age well. You can't, it's like no means no. That's like the shortest song of all time. It should be like a total of 7 seconds.
Right. I wanna, no, thanks. No, I'm good. All right. Done. End of song.
And then there was another one. It was like, oh, you might be young, but you're ready. No, song done. like the full album. 37 songs, 5 minutes. Like it wouldn't even, it was so inappropriate.
But
And
again, you grew up on that. I grew up on
Correct.
Keith Sweat and Bobby Brown. Like, and it
And I'll
was like,
sing it at the
oh, this is
pool.
catchy. And yeah,
I still sing it.
yes.
You don't
And I think
realize.
but this is part of the whole thing of, like, to your point, like the grooming, the what role women play, and the power dynamic. Like, it all comes back to that power
Fully.
dynamic at work, in
Yes.
society, all of these different
And at
places where it
home.
is who has the power.
Well, and then later, Mr. Clayton told me
Does
there
Mr.
was,
Clayton know that he does not have power in the household, that you actually are the powerful one in the household?
he found out yesterday.
Okay.
He was going to find out. We've been married for 23 years, which I can thank for 5 of the happiest years of my life. A couple of other ones.
Jackie.
What? Oh, sorry. So what was funny was it's the same thing, but it's different. So I was out of town this past weekend, and I was like, what should we have for dinner? And Mr. Clayton said, well, there's chicken in the oven. And I just stopped and was like, well, what were you going to do with said chicken? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, was that a gift for me, the chicken, so that I could determine what to make with it? And he was like, and then reality hit, and it was like, oh no, I was going to plan on doing something. And I was like, okay, well then go do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mr. Clayton works very hard, and he works, and he's a construction manager he's outside all day, rain, sweat, heavy, whatever, comes home, drives 2 hours, whatever. But I sure did watch him make that chicken, and it was delicious because it wasn't intention, but I felt powerless. Like I needed to get up and make that chicken, but powerful when I was like, I'm not doing it. But it was hard for me in that moment. It was like a rehearsal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even after 23 years, I was like, oh no, you didn't just tell me there's a chicken in the refrigerator. What is this?
I'm glad you clarified that it was refrigerator, because you said oven before, and I'm like, he
Oh,
left
sorry,
raw
no,
chicken in the
refrigerator.
oven with nothing to
No.
like, that's very weird, Todd. You should really not do that anymore. Be sure that's not safe.
That's right.
Amen. But I also think there's this piece, and I don't even remember who the heck I was talking to about it, but it's like the whole gender dynamics in a relationship and how that works out when you have a man and woman who are married. And, during the courting, women are, making them a plate and fixing dinner and cleaning the house and doing all of these things, thinking, oh, I need to do this to get my man or to
Correct.
whatever. And then how then they get angry later on in the marriage when the man expects that they're going to continue doing those things. And, 20 years later, she's pissed because he hasn't picked up his socks because he never had to. And he hasn't made dinner in 20 years, and he hasn't cleaned the house. And if he does, he's like, look at how amazing I am. I loaded the dishwasher and turned it on and put soap in there. And like how you have to set that up while you're dating. This isn't a, hey, we're going to do all the things while we're dating, then change him. That's not how life works.
It is not. But I think that is what is, where we teach people different, and they accept things as different, and they've changed in the way that we have those roles different. And I, being mom of the year, have always said to sweet baby TJ, I am not raising a worthless man. I am not sending another worthless man into the world. Now, did I say that to my daughter? No. And so can she cook? I don't know, but my son can, and clean and do the things. And Hannah does the things, but I was always very particular about it and teaching her various things and understanding, I'm like, okay, well, you're a math major, you can figure it out. But it was very important to me that you don't send this person into the world when you have these children. That's for the first person. When you have these children, to try not to set up norms that you've created.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
They will help you. And I think we need to, when you start having that control over yourself and have those quiet moments where you get to decide, you need to make sure that you have your boundaries, and because all of this is set up about your personal boundaries, and at what point do you allow something to creep in. And it's okay to not cook if you don't want to cook, or it's okay to have those things in mind, but it's not okay to say, well, you're the man, you do this, you're the woman, you do this. You should have conversations about that to make sure that it's balanced. It's never 50-50. Likewise at work, it's never going to be, you still have more power than you think. I think most employees have more power than they think they do at work. But you have to find, and we talk about this, about just finding an ally, like having an ally at work. You have to find your ally so you can have conversations at work where you feel safe if for some reason you feel unsafe, or just to get the lay of the land. And that's what's weird, is that where do these norms come from still in 2021? Is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Why is this still the case? Fix it, Katie.
I'm trying.
Okay.
And I think that's exactly right. It's this like whole idea that this is just the way it is. And, if I have one more conversation about the good old boys club, or that's just Bob, that's just how he is. And it is at this point, I have to really check myself. I actually had someone the other day say, so are you muted? Or because I was like, I have to mute myself right now because I'm about to spit fire. And I think that's a part of it too, that folks don't get, is what impact that actually has in the workplace when you have that good old boys club and you have these norms that are this is just the way it is. The men manage and the women they take notes, and they're the admins, and they're this and that and the other thing. And I know, and I'm saying this with also knowing the fact, and we all kind of know this, that, your admins are usually the ones running the company for the most part anyhow, in a lot of ways. And I don't say that lightly, like admins have so much power, but I also think there is it's like in tech, so many women who start out as engineers, as coders, are pushed into program manager roles or project manager roles versus staying on that individual contributor. I'm going to become a principal engineer. And it is so interesting that is just like, that's what's expected. So that's what happens, versus let's push those boundaries a little bit. Anyhow, so let's shift slightly, because I mentioned earlier about kind of, when you're in your 20s, you don't know any better when you're coming into a work job. And how does that shift over the decades of your life?
I will tell you, it's so funny. The 20s, you're so excited. I remember the first time I made 40K and I was like, ooh, steak and lobster and let's go to Tiffany's.
Every day.
Right. Like, woo. Oh, wait.
And they're like, wait, I still have to pay bills. Wait.
Yeah. My bad. And then in my 30s, I felt more sure of myself, but I didn't feel like people were taking me as seriously. I realized once I hit my 30s that people hadn't been taking me seriously. Mm-hmm. I was in a really weird, hindsight, really weird position. When I was in my 20s, I worked in IT as a business analyst, and I was responsible for being on the teams that implemented new software. And I think back now, and I know somebody hated me because I would just like bebop and be like, oh my God, guess what we're doing? We're implementing email. Maybe like, what's email? Oh yeah, we're getting rid of interoffice mail. And now you're doing it on your computer. Isn't that great? I mean, like, and they were just terrified. And I thought it was the coolest thing. Later, you have a little bit more understanding of the responsibility of your work, how it impacts the overall business. When you're in your 20s, you're still kind of in your head, where it is individual. You're thinking of your role and your paycheck and your money as you develop in your career. And it's not necessarily 20s. It's as you develop in your career, you realize this is a part of a bigger picture. How do I interact with the other organization? Members of the organization, and how do we interact as a team? And then you start realizing that you have to ask for more things and step up and be heard. Whereas as you're younger, you're more willing to be told. And I think you're trying to make some of those other decisions. Same?
Yeah, I agree. I think in just the 20s, I also think, to your point, there's like this very myopic view of your world. And then I think as you start to move into your 30s, there is this, oh, what's going on around me in the world? And I know that we're in a kind of an odd time in history because people are much more focused on what's going on in the world than they ever have been
Oh,
before.
for sure.
And which is a good thing, I think. But like in your 20s, you're still in the, hey, do I have enough money to pay for tacos at 3 a.m. after the bar?
Right.
And am I going to make rent because I went out and bought those shoes that I probably shouldn't have and don't really need? You're not thinking about how am I impacting the world around me and how do I need to help? So, and I agree. I think that shifts a little bit in your 30s too. You're having a broader scope. And there's also like from a business perspective, there's also in the 20s, I'm making the widgets.
That's right.
And I'm excited about all the new things that I'm going to take over the world. In your 30s, it shifts a little bit to, okay, what is this in the bigger picture? Like
There's
how
other
do
people
I
who
help?
make widgets.
Right. And how does my work impact the bottom line?
Right.
And I know, and I'm going to sidebar here for a moment. I know HR always does we're a support function. We're not a money-making function. And that I challenge that every time I can because of
Yes.
all the decisions you have to make on how much money are you paying for a new hire? How much are you saving the company from lawsuits and other type of claims, et cetera, et cetera? How are you making sure that you have pay equity so people don't leave? And how are you making sure that you create an inclusive environment? So anyone says that HR is the support function, punch them in the nose. I give you full permission, or the throat. I always like a good throat punching.
I like a good throat punch. Yeah.
I do not advocate violence, but if it's necessary for the situation, I'm going to let you make your own decision as an adult.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's move into our 40s.
Hi, I'm George LaRocque, and I'm looking forward to exploring the critical trends shaping the future of work and technology with you over on the Work Tech podcast. Now, this podcast is a little different. I bring together industry leaders, innovators, and investors, and we go deep into market intelligence that matters to HR pros and tech providers alike. So give the Work Tech podcast a listen here on the Work Defined Podcast Network, and please subscribe if you like it. See you there.
Ooh, something happens right around 38 where the no's come out. It just turns into the year of the no. And it's when, it's the moment when you're like, someone will say, so Katie, can you stay after work to do this thing? And you're like, I'm not doing anything. No, you're just like, no, because that's not my choice. Because you've given some of those energy and things to things that had nothing to do with your personal life. And you realize, wait, there's got to be a balance. And I think right in your 40s, you start thinking more about what work-life balance is, right? And that's for you, because you're like, this isn't going to last forever. I need to be able to nurture me. And you also realize that the people you work with are really nurturing the company. They have your best interest as long as it will ultimately benefit the organization. Even if they love you and they do all of the things for you, don't get it twisted. It is to make sure that we can be the most productive and the happiest that we can be to continue going, which we both need, but it is a symbiotic relationship at best, but it's mostly one-sided because they do have the majority of the power, because without that, but you realize that you have control over yourself. You start looking at the things you can control.
Absolutely. And I would also say like 40s for me was also this point where, and I'll give you an example. I was always the person in my 20s and 30s because I am single, don't have kids. I was always the person I would volunteer to work like Christmas week and all of the holidays and stuff like that. Not weekends, but like holidays, when we needed someone to be in the office because we were a 24-hour operation, or, even during holidays needed someone in the office. And it was because I was like, well, hey, other folks want to be with their kids. They want to do these things. And my family, my parents, many, many, many moons ago decided that we would celebrate our holiday traditions. We celebrate Christmas. And so we would celebrate that the week before Christmas, like the weekend before. Because with 7 kids, them getting married, them having other family obligations once they do get married, blah, 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 blah. And so if we did it the week before, then we wouldn't have to worry about Christmas morning getting up and rushing somewhere, or Christmas Eve having to be somewhere when you want to be with your people. And then in my 40s, I was like, no, like, why do I have to be the one? and not in a like crappy way, but just in a like, no, I also want to like take this time off and, have different celebrations with my friends, or, just be decorating my house, or just, I don't bake. So not like I'm baking Christmas cookies or anything like that, but just having that time off. In my 40s, I was like, no, I'm good. You guys can, you all handle this. You've got this.
Yeah.
But then I think it was also in my 40s was right around when I started to go, how much longer do I want to be in this org?
That's right.
And, this is, I think, it's kind of the HR joke is like in your 40s is when you decide, are you going to be in a CHRO or are you going to go be a consultant? Because those are kind of your two options.
Or are you going to stay in this role and just stay?
And
I
just
know
stay.
a lot
True.
of people that are
Mhm.
like, I don't want to be a manager. And I've
Mhm.
had friends who were like, worked in the same role for 25 years and they weren't managers and they've trained all of their managers. Like,
Right.
I already onboarded all of you.
Right.
It was funny because this was right when this particular person was going to retire. Had a meeting with their boss and wanted to confirm some things, and they gave her a spreadsheet to fill out. And she was like, yeah, boo, I created this spreadsheet. Like, I understand that. Like, I want you to do something else. And it was just funny because it had been floating around for like 10 years. And she's like, yeah,
Mhm.
okay. On that bottom, like that whole, like, more information about the document. Yeah, I wrote this document.
I was the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do have to make those determinations on where you want to be in your role, whether it's in any organization. But I think some of it you do start, it's different than what people think, especially when you're working in this multicultural group, because they'll be like, oh, well, don't you want to celebrate and have this little party? And you're like, no, I'm good.
No. Right. But it is just, it is interesting. And I think, we're both in our 40s, so I have no idea what 50s and 60s is going to look like, other than the thing for me also from just a work perspective. It also was, I want to go have more adventures.
Yes.
I want to travel. I want to go do certain things. I think you're at a point where, you're kind of approaching that empty nest time. And it's not even like, oh, I want to go travel. It's even just like go visit the kids at school or go do whatever. And I think it's also, we're in this space where we all have family members, parents, siblings, whatever. That we're also starting to look around and go, okay, what do we need to prepare, for longer term?
And you don't have
and
the
how do we
right
need to
amount of
approach?
energy. You just don't
No.
have the energy fully.
Mm-mm.
Like, I was laughing. I have a meeting next week and the meeting is at 8 a.m. And I was laughing. I was like, they were like, well, 8 is when work starts. I was like, yeah, but I'm not camera ready and voice ready. I have to wake up
No.
at 6
Right.
in order to be like, if you, it's like, yeah, I'm up and I'm at my desk at 8. I usually don't talk to people till 9 at least.
Right.
And I usually don't like to get on camera until 10. I'm fully made up. I just can't have less control. The caffeine hasn't kicked in and I'm not putting on my happy face like we talked about.
Yeah. You're not smiling at 8 a.m.
No,
as you should.
never.
I agree with you. I'm a 9 a.m. meeting start person too. And it's, I'm up at 6:30, 7 o'clock, depending on what time of year it is. Right now, it's earlier than that because it gets lighter earlier. But yeah, I'm up.
I'm fully up.
I just don't, I need a minute. I need to like work on whatever I forgot to do yesterday or need to do before starting the workday today. I need to have some of those things to happen before I can jump in and be talking to humans.
I'm thanking God that I made it. I made it. Thank you.
Another
I made it
day.
another day. Well,
Absolutely.
I guess we're doing it. Are we still
I
doing
guess
it?
we're doing it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and I think that's also, we have, we've kind of, and this isn't an entitlement thing, because I don't want it to come across like, oh, we've done our duty and so now we deserve this. But there is a like, how many hours, how much time have we put in to get the knowledge set that we have, the skill set that we have, the credibility that we have with our peers, with our, other humans that we're surrounding ourselves with, that they know, oh yeah, Katie doesn't want to meet until 9 a.m. or Katie won't meet after 3 p.m. or whatever. That's not me, but whatever the thing is. But it's also but they'll get it done. And I know they'll get it done. And I know it will happen and all this good stuff.
But you also, what's funny is that when you get into your 40s, you realize finally, oh, guess what? I don't know everything. And some of it you're like, and I'm okay with that. Or but I do know somebody else who knows something. You see a lot of that collaboration where you're okay with those things, but it really did take until late 30s, early 40s before I was like the world. And I don't mean that you don't know a lot, because you can be, a subject matter expert, but you just realize the world is so much bigger. And especially in the kind of work that we do, fully recognize on a regular basis that there's no way to get all of it. And there's so many more voices to hear, and new ones every day. So it's another opportunity to do that. And we're not as quick to try to make a name. I think when you're younger, you're like, look at me. And then, but more sharing at this point, because you realize, which is also why people push back and they're like, oh, you think you know everything. And you're like, no, I'm explaining to you that I know you don't know everything because I don't know everything. I'm sharing what I know. Let's keep,
But I yes. And I also think there's this piece where I feel less competitive now than I maybe did before. So it's also, and I think Jenna Kutcher, I am going to kind of quote her or quote one of the concepts that she's talked about on her podcast, which I don't listen to anymore, but I did. But she was talking about the fact that she was a wedding photographer and she would go and like hang out with other wedding photographers and they would learn from each other. And they had like this little group, they all got together, and it was along the lines of, hey, no matter what, we're all going to do this differently. So even if I share all of my secrets with you about how I do this work, you're still going to do it differently than I do. And so there's no longer this, and I do share so much more with folks. Like I was thinking about, someone has been trying to get me to write a book, and I'm like, sure, you bet. But then I was like, oh, well, I don't want to tell them everything. Then I'm going to go out of business. And which is the most ridiculous thing ever, of course. But I was like thinking that like, if I share all the things that I do with clients, like, is that a bad idea? And it's like, no, like, again, I'm still going to do the thing differently for each client and help them in the specific way that they need. And this is just, again, more sharing. And then also, again, bringing other voices to the table.
Absolutely. And I think we also find pleasure in other people's successes instead of jealousy in other people's successes. It brings on hope for all of us.
Yes. Well, and I think, again, back to what we do for a living, there's also, I have shared this before, you've shared this before, like, we need other voices at the table, because I have my experience, you have your experience. And even when you and I just talk about certain things that are going on in the world, it's like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it's really we're doing this on purpose because we want to learn about each other's experiences, about your perceptions, et cetera. And I think that's why we have all of these conversations and why we've selected the guests that we've selected and asked to join us. It's important to hear all those voices.
That's good, Katie.
Thank you. So Jackye,
yes,
what's your one thing from this episode?
Our body, our choice. Our body, our choice. Our body. Sorry, we're dancing now.
Try to do a beatbox, but then I remembered I can't. So
I just think of that. It's important. Like, don't overshare information that is not in alignment with the job. Just don't. On any perspective, you're really not helping yourself out. I know lots of people that like, oh, I had a kind ear, and then 2 weeks later they're like looking for another job. Just don't. If you have, it's always great to have one ally at work or someone that you really can confide in, but you don't have to share information. And that if you feel uncomfortable about it, though, this is not just one thing, but it kind of is. But if you feel like you're in a situation where you're afraid of the information, really start peeling back the onion on that and seeing if there's something else going on. You might need a change, might need a job change.
Yep. Mine is 40s fabulous, and being in your 40s is a great place to be. And try to get there sooner. And what I mean by that is not try to get to your 40s sooner, but try to get to that place where you know things, and you can contribute and add value, and you know the right way to do things, and the ethical, and all of those different things. And also, like, make sure you're balancing your own needs and the needs of the organization so that you are taking care of yourself. And you can go on that world trip when you're in your 40s, because it's really amazing, and you should go all the places.
All the places, and experiencing it, you'll feel better.
You will. All right. So if you would like to listen to our podcast, we're at inclusiveafpodcast.com. You can send us any notes, any questions to info@inclusiveafpodcast.com. And we are on pretty much every podcast platform that you could ever want. And if you want to see our smiling faces,
Because we're gorgeous.
because we
Let me just
smile
say that.
Constantly
Grinning.
We're also on YouTube. The Inclusive AF podcast is on YouTube. So if you want to watch along versus just listening, you can do that too. We would love to hear a review, a thumbs up, you're doing great, all those things. We really appreciate them from all of you, and we thank you for listening.
I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao, Bella.